Just make sure. Excellent. Okay, great. I am so excited to be back again with our Women's Health, Healing, and Happiness in Hemp. Joining me today, Dara is what is this, our third time now, Dara? Dara is a massage therapist who specializes in women's health and Mayan abdominal massage. I always almost say that wrong. She's an organic farmer and a retired midwife. And Dr. Eileen is a chiropractor. She's a functional nutritionist as well, and she specializes in finding holistic solutions for any condition. And Dara is actually in Taos, New Mexico. I always like to point out where everybody is. And Dr. Eileen is in Northern Cal. And yay, you're back there now, because the last couple times you were kind of stuck in Midwest. Maybe not stuck, but you were located in the Midwest for a while. Yeah. And for the first time today, I'm so excited to have Shiela Vanderveer, I love that last name, joining us. And Shiela is a midwife. She's also in Northern California. And she is actually the owner of a midwifery and a perinatal wellness center. She has two different centers, which both sound absolutely amazing. So I'm so excited to have her knowledge and passion joining us today. I am Erica Reid, and actually I forgot to say everybody's last name, so sorry about that. So I'm just Erica, and I'm an occupational therapist who specializes in hands-on modalities, so visceral work, myofascial work, and I have a pelvic floor specialty, so working with men and women with their pelvic floor health. We all got connected and get to work together through our hemp and plant-based wellness company, Prime My Body, which is super exciting for all of us because we have all been able to work with this beautiful plant and see what magic and brilliance that it brings to our individual practices and working with women. So that's why this whole thing got started, just because I thought it was super important for women to have the support, not just the community support, but the support in natural and plant-based medicine that is super, super powerful, and for them to be able to understand how that works. So it brings me so much joy to have this connection with all of us and to have everybody so willing to give their knowledge out there. So I want to start, so today's topic is perinatal. So it's about using hemp during pregnancy and birth. I don't know for myself yet, but I know a lot of the issues that moms, pregnant women that I work with, and I'm sure as well as women that you guys work with, a lot of the conditions and the symptoms and the complaints that they have are things like not sleeping well, swelling joints, muscular pain, and my favorite, morning sickness. So I want to talk today about how hemp can help these things, but I want to start out with you, Dara. I know we've talked about this before, and you get asked a lot. Is it safe to use hemp during pregnancy? And what's your experience? What's your thoughts? What's your knowledge around that?
Thank you so much, Erica. Thank you, Eileen and Shiela, for being here too. It's so exciting for me to be doing this with Shiela. I just want to credit Shiela with changing the trajectory of my life and bringing me to Taos, New Mexico, because we met in California and she redirected me to the midwifery program here where she had studied. And the whole reason that I have a life here in Taos is because of her. So thank you. Yeah, it's an honor to be doing this. We can't make that claim. We can't claim necessarily that it is safe for women to use in pregnancy, because do pharmaceutical companies or any supplement companies ever do trials for things on pregnant women or breastfeeding women? No, they don't. What we do know is that if an endocannabinoid system is functioning properly, then the mom is producing two endocannabinoids, 2-AG, which is present in breast milk once the baby's out, but while they're pregnant, they're producing anandamide. However, for most of us, our endocannabinoid system is not functioning. Mine absolutely wasn't. I'm kind of like a classic endocannabinoid deficiency picture. If you haven't heard of endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome, look it up. It's an actual syndrome. And the majority of us have it to some extent or another because hemp has been taken out of the food chain. Hemp has been taken out of the pharmacopoeia. It was prescribed by doctors up until the 1930s. So we used to nourish the system in our body that we've talked about before, but just really briefly, it's the overarching control system for all the systems, our reproductive system, our endocrine system, our immune system, our respiratory system, our digestive system, on and on. It's the master control switch for all 12 systems of the body. And this is a very recent medical discovery. So most of us are depleted. What does that mean for our babies? It means that as we're working towards conception, we're not hormonally optimized unless our endocannabinoid system is optimized and nourished. It also means that if our ECS is working properly, our babies are literally getting bathed in anandamide. They are literally swimming in an ocean of anandamide, the bliss molecule, if it's functioning properly, because the uterus has more cannabinoid receptors than anywhere else in the body. It has the highest concentration. So that is so crucial. So for me, if I'm talking to pregnant women, I want them to do all the research. I want them to go online. I want them to look up everything they possibly can about what the endocannabinoid system does, what broad spectrum and full spectrum hemp and terpenes can support in the body. If I had had access to this when I was pregnant, you can bet 5,000,000% I would have been taking this every single day. I had crazy morning sickness until I was 14 weeks pregnant. I was constantly nauseous. We know that hemp supports proper digestive function and proper hormonal function, which are both going crazy in a pregnant woman's body, especially in the first trimester. So it just would give that foundation of support. And again, we can't claim that it is safe, but I can tell you personally that I wish that I had had access to this through my entire pregnancy and through my entire breastfeeding relationship. I didn't have access to these extracts until my son was 2.5. So I was breastfeeding him for like a half a year while taking these extracts, and my life went to pretty miserable to me feeling amazing and being so sad that I had not found CBD, CBG, and all these terpenes and everything we have so much earlier in my journey. So I'm so happy that we're talking about this because I think it's something that can support every single woman out there, no matter where she's at in her reproductive journey, but especially heading into pregnancy and through all of it. So yeah, I'll start there. That was a tangent.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you, Dara. And, you know, I was going to mention that I read that 50% of women, pregnant women, are using prescriptive or over-the-counter drugs. Wow. 50% of women. That's pretty intense. And they were saying that it's everything from antidepressants to cold meds to sleep meds, which, you know, those are all things that can be addressed by the endocannabinoid system when it's nourished, when it's doing its, and when it's able to do its job. So the thing with pregnancy, there's a shift in hormones. I think everybody knows that, right? Even the men know that because they're experiencing it in quite a different way. So there's this huge shift in hormones, particularly now. There's extra stress during the pregnancy. But that can come in general, and then particularly now with everything going on. So you've got this shift in hormones. You've got progesterone. Well, I'm going to let Dr. Eileen get into this a little bit more, but I just, from my knowledge, want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So with stress, you have cortisone, which then lowers your progesterone, which then leaves estrogen to hang around and do some of the things that we don't enjoy as much. From breast tenderness to just a lot of risk. Some of those risks being miscarriage in the first trimester, preterm delivery, eclampsia, which is gestational hypertension, and then even some hemorrhaging that can happen after you have your baby. So, Dr. Eileen, if you could kind of fill us in how the endocannabinoid system and hemp. Did I say it wrong, Dara? I'm like, okay. I have a habit of making up my own version of how to say that. So, but how it comes into play with the hormones and how we can use hemp to, you know, like Dara said, we can't say that it prevents or cures anything, but how can we use it to support our system so maybe we can see less of that happening?
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Where I would go as far as talking about the hormones in our body as well as the endocannabinoid system during pregnancy would be to address the major hormones in our body during pregnancy. One of those is oxytocin. That's more towards the end for birth as well as for breastfeeding, but it is a major player. And oxytocin and the endocannabinoid system are major. They marry each other when they're working well together. And then the other one to talk about is cortisol. And cortisol is the one that you were talking about a second ago. Cortisol and adrenaline are made by our adrenal glands. It's the stress hormones in our body. And cortisol is one of the main hormones involved in managing stress, right? So it's the long-term stress hormone. I talk about it in my health talks, like adrenaline is like a gun to the head, while cortisol is tanks rolling down the street, but you still have to go to school. You still have to get your kid to school. You still have to get to your store to get your eggs and milk, things like that, that you still have to have daily response, but there's still threat happening all the time. Do you think maybe right now the COVID message that we're all getting could probably be creating an increased cortisol response? Most likely. So cortisol's natural in our body, and its job is to help with managing that long-term stress. But whenever it's increased and it's at higher levels, it can be problematic, and it can produce symptoms that can range from weight gain and mood swings and increased anxiety and all the different ranges of issues that we can have. It can even mess with, when it's out of balance, the water retention in our body. Now think of all the women that have been pregnant during my pregnancy. I have 4 kids. I only birthed one of them. And the fluid that could be in the lower legs and in the hands and things like that, that's also a cortisol response. And when you look at the studies that are showing phytocannabinoids, which are part of what hemp is involved with, hemp, turmeric, dark leafy greens, chocolate, echinacea, these are all phytocannabinoids that nourish and detox our endocannabinoid system. And what we're finding when you look at studies specifically about CBD, which is one of the most studied of our phytocannabinoids, is that its job with cortisol specifically is to lower cortisol levels in the brain by interfering with the excretion of the hormones in the adrenal gland. So it's literally helping modulate the cortisol response. So if we're feeling overstressed, we still have this wonderful mother system of our body, the endocannabinoid system, that has the ability to help regulate that stress in our bodies. There's also the response of insulin in our bodies. If you know anything about diabetes during pregnancy, that when you have that blood sugar test during pregnancy, that's making sure that your insulin levels are balanced. And when you have a balanced endocannabinoid system, you have a greater ability to manage and balance even your insulin as well as your cortisol. It's helping with melatonin, which is helping with your sleep. So all of these things, the hormone system of our body, besides all of the other systems, are going to help a woman with her pregnancy tremendously. So you're seeing melatonin, which is going to be helping you with your circadian rhythm. It's going to help you know that it's nighttime and it's time to sleep, and it's daytime and it's time to be awake, right? That's melatonin is for your nighttime hormone response. So all of the hormones, especially cortisol, would be the one that we're going to be looking at. But insulin levels, to make sure we're not hyper or hypoglycemic, as well as melatonin. And then just the basic understanding of the endocannabinoid system, as Dara was talking about, in helping us be balanced and have create homeostasis, is going to help our bodies. Every system in our body is going to be doing something extraordinary during a pregnancy, right? We're building another human being. And during that process, we have all of the other systems. If you're not eating enough calcium in your diet, your baby is going to take calcium from your bones. So what do you think maybe is going to happen if your endocannabinoid system is nourished and detoxed properly? It's going to help your body choose the least harmful version of calcium to take from your body if you're not feeding yourself. These are just examples of how our body is going to do better if the endocannabinoid system's working during pregnancy. And just like Dara said, I had no access to these extracts before while I was pregnant, but I can tell you I've had them since my daughter is 8 and my sons are all in their 20s, and I'm still very thankful for it. It's been a great response.
Wonderful. Wow. Thank you. It's
Sure.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. I was looking up some stuff to kind of review what happens last night, and it's a lot is happening. A lot's happening when your body is when you're developing another human being, and then a lot is happening in this world right now, and it's a lot to put on people. So it's nice to actually hear how things are working and how it can be supported. So, because we all get so many things thrown at us, here, take this, or here, do this. And there's old wise tales, and there's different foods, and there's, I don't know, tap your head and rub your belly. I mean, there's so many different things that women are told. It's nice to hear concrete reasons why and how the body can be supported, specifically by such a special natural plant that we have such great access to. Shiela, you are on the front lines. You're hands-on. I don't even know what to ask you because there's just probably so much. Fill us in. Tell us what you're seeing, how you're using it. What do you think about all this?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I feel like we're well matched in the sense of you all just said some really beautiful things to educate people about the larger picture and why it does matter in pregnancy and, conception throughout pregnancy, in birth. And I know postpartum is part of that in my world, but we'll focus on the perinatal part today. I love thinking of this as what I call the motherboard too, similar to what Dara was talking about, and you too, Eileen, and how it can nurture the whole system, right? And that looks different for everybody. One of my specialties as a midwife is very much about honing in with each individual and their system, right? Not only their physical system and their baby, but their nervous system, their endocannabinoid system, their family system, if you're planning a home birth, which is what we do, the environment in which you're giving birth, and then of course the world at large, right? And so we are living in a particularly stressful time, but pregnancy always has those elements for people regardless. And so with the use of hemp oil, and not all my clients use it for sure, it's a very individual thing, just like nutrition is very individual for people. But the clients that have used it, it is very much about aligning with all that energy that you spoke of, Eileen. I really liked how you explained, how the hormones are working. And, oxytocin is available throughout the entire pregnancy. And the more that we can nurture the parasympathetic nervous system, the more optimal whatever comes up in pregnancy, is able to be handled contextually. And nurturing the motherboard, so to speak, whether it's with hemp oil or all of it, there's lots of ways of nurturing it. But the hemp oil in particular is I think of it as a way of nurturing all the pieces, which is why I call it the motherboard, right? And then in action, like how you said that, Erica, is that it also works very acutely, which is one of the things I love about it the most. So if there is a nervous system response that is out of body, let's say, or there's something that comes up that is very difficult. So like in birth, for example, I've used hemp oil a lot to help someone find their center, when they're on the edge of pushing or something like that. And it it does have that conduit energy, and it's really beautiful. And then of course everything about the receptor sites in the uterus, and I do educate people a lot about that because nobody really knows, the opportunity that there is there. And just really my most love, I guess you could say, in the journey of nurturing pregnancy and birth is really about understanding our nervous systems and how that impacts everything regardless. I do work with a low risk population. So while some of my clients certainly aren't over the counter meds for various things, the majority are not. But regardless, there's lots of ways of nurturing. And this is a very, it's a deep one, the motherboard, so.
Wow. Thank you. What a beautiful thing to be able to support women and really ease the process for them so that they can bask in the beauty of it more than have to worry about, is this going to happen? Is this pain going to get worse? With the clients that I work with, it's a couple different things. Obviously, a lot of them come to see me for pain. And then I've actually worked on a few mothers who need to have their babies turn before birth. And it looks like my cat had his hemp oil today because he's just running around behind me, sorry. And for me, everything always goes back to, can we get anyone out of fight or flight and freeze?
Correct.
Get him into rest and digest. Or what one of my colleagues used this term recently that I really like for women, tend and befriend. So it's the state of tending to your body and having that community. It's very important for women, and having our community and the feminine in that experience. So for me, even when we're trying to help someone turn a baby before birth, it's what's going on? Well, often I find that it's their psoas muscle, which is tight, and giving them back pain, giving them pelvic floor, pubic symphysis pain, and not allowing that baby to have the room. What is the psoas all about? It's your fight or flight or freeze muscle. It holds that memory. It's the muscle of the soul. So having something that we can take to help get us out of that experience and get us into the present, into that healing mode, because our body can only heal when it's in the rest and digest state and the relaxed rest state. Getting them in that state, and then that psoas can let go. And that's often when we see the back pain and the different ailments, or pain ailments, easing, and then allow for baby to turn, because then there's that space and mother isn't so tense and that muscle isn't causing restrictions in the body. So for my experience, that's just, it's, anything that can get them in that mode. And this particular extract seems to do the job pretty quickly, particularly ours, being that the way that it's made, it gets in the system when you take it orally just within milliseconds. And that's a beautiful thing. And I did want to mention too, if anybody had listened to our talk on fertility, there was some question about using CBD and with fertility, and what Dr. Eileen talked to us about and pointed out is that was testing with CBD as an isolate. And we're talking about using the plant as a whole, the way that the plant came, the way that God made the plant, using CBD and all the other phytocannabinoids together, and using them to have that entourage effect, which is much more powerful and actually much different. So having access to all of it to enhance the body and put us in that state where we can heal, and that state where we can be present in the moment is such a beautiful thing. Not only to take away some of these conditions that moms are experiencing during pregnancy, but to be in the present, to really enjoy that experience. I know some of some of my story with pre-hemp oil. I actually don't remember a lot of my story, but I think that's because a lot of the time I just wasn't in the present moment. I wasn't in my body. So I wasn't fully experiencing it and therefore not fully remembering it. And that's one of the things that I love about the extract for myself is bringing myself here and now and okay, this is what it feels like. And just having that feeling instead of just moving through is what keeps that, that memory and makes the situation at present even more joyful. Eileen, you wanted to, oh, we can't hear you. Oh, here, I'll take you off.
Unmute me.
Yeah, there you go.
I was just going to speak to the the mechanism behind our being present with the endocannabinoid system, just because I feel like some of us talking here are talking like everybody knows what we're talking about, but I wanted to just go back to some of the basics of the endocannabinoid system and what Dara was talking about of the two natural endocannabinoids that our body makes. Anandamide is this hormone that it's what our body makes that is going to bring us back to being present. Its job is to help us create a blissful state. And when it was discovered anytime anybody was in a blissful state. So during intimacy, during meditation, anything that you're doing that makes you feel like you lose time, you lost track of time, or you do it whether you get paid or not. These are all things that are common in an anandamide state. And anandamide is present during any blissful experience, but it checks out during a stressful experience. And so what's interesting is that anandamide, as it's present in when you're feeling good and you're feeling present, you have a greater ability to spiral upward in that ascension of your evolved self, which can only help the developing brain and digestive system and heart of that baby inside you, as well as your own birth experience. And it's because specifically of anandamide that we are able to keep ourselves out of that fight or flight space. And then if we talk about specifically the fight or flight nervous system, the parasympathetic versus the sympathetic nervous system, again, parasympathetic means rest and digest. And what's interesting is that we can be just as much in trouble in rest and digest as we are in the sympathetic mode, because if you're in a parasympathetic state and there's a stress response in the parasympathetic state and somebody is chronically in a bad place with that, they would have their stress response, instead of running from the tiger, would be to faint and to lay there limp. And that's not at all a healthy response either, right? So we have to have both the sympathetic and the parasympathetic response in our bodies during the day, throughout the day. When we wake up in the morning, we have a gentle sympathetic response to just get out of bed. Let's just get up. We're going to be, doesn't have to be with the alarm. It can be just waking up. You're going to have a slight sympathetic response. But most of the day, you want to be in rest and digest. And especially during pregnancy, you want to be in rest and digest. And this is something that our body's going to go back and forth with hormone cues and with nervous system cues. And so that's what we were talking about there, right, Shiela? I just wanted to kind of go over what the sympathetic response and parasympathetic response was, just so we have some understanding of that.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. And the other thing too that I wanted to comment on is you brought up oxytocin, which is one of my favorite subjects. We produce oxytocin when we hug. And so I've always been, I'm into hugs. And so we're told not to do that now. I won't say if I'm still doing that or not, but so we're lacking that. We're lacking some of that human connection. And that might be something that pregnant women experience anyways, because maybe they're not going out as much in general pre-COVID, or maybe people are afraid to hug them, or maybe they can't because there's a belly there. And so we're missing some of that human touch. So to know that we can get it from a natural source and just help create that in our body, it just is so important to me. I definitely increased my hemp extract ingestion these days for many reasons, but that being one of them, just because I need that feeling in the body.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, please, Dara.
Can I jump back in?
Yeah.
So much goodness is being said. I want to share for a minute a few things that have come up of what's been said here. And then Shiela, I would love to hear you if you have any specific examples of what you've seen in a birthing mom, or in pregnancy, like if you have one or two examples of profound shifts that you've seen from using this, because I've heard one story from you that really was impressive. Two words that just came up as we were talking were, like, we all have our little things. I call this magic mommy juice because it changed my life as a mother completely. It's such a huge part of self-care. And so the words relaxation and integration together with this, especially for the moms, just came in very strongly because it allows us to integrate. And when I think about the birth process, when I was a midwife, and it was the summer I was about to get my license, I attended some births outside of Eugene, Oregon. And we were out in the middle of nowhere at this house. These were the healthiest people. I remember it was the first house I saw that had like a case of fresh young coconuts in the fridge, and the husband was like macheting them open and she was drinking them constantly. I mean, super high nutrition, very clean lifestyle, right? Wanted totally natural birth. She had been stuck at 3 centimeters. For anyone that doesn't know, you're going from 0 to 1 centimeter to 10 centimeters open to be able to push. So she's stuck at less than halfway. I think it had been almost a day. And, she was getting exhausted. This amazing midwife I was working with was getting like hot towels. I'd never seen somebody boil a pot of hot water and put these towels on her back because she was in excruciating pain. And when we're in that level of pain, there's a way that when the endocannabinoid system turns on, we can integrate. It helps us integrate so many different things. So this is one example of the integration piece. And so this woman was struggling. We're starting to talk about transferring to the hospital because we're an hour away from a hospital. She's exhausted. She has not progressed in forever. There's something going on, right? I'm not advocating for any kind of illegal substance use in labor in any way. This woman didn't tell us and took her bowl of THC flower into the bathroom by herself. And we didn't know. And the baby was out less than an hour later. Wow. So there's a way that the hemp plant helps people to manage what's going on, whether it's the physical discomfort, whether it's the emotional intensity of giving birth. A lot of trauma can come up during that time. We could spend a whole thing talking about that with Shiela. She knows so much about this. But to watch this woman, and again, I'm not advocating THC use. I'm so grateful that we have these hemp extracts with 0 THC so that people can have a very similar, maybe more level of relief and not have to have an altered state of consciousness. But we know that if we went into the hospital, we would have gotten a narcotic, probably fentanyl right away, that is very hard on the mom and baby. And then we would have gotten an epidural, which is full of other really intense drugs for the mom and baby. So I don't want to have a debate right now of what's safer or not, but for her, that helped her get her baby out. And if I had had the hemp extract in my bag and I knew that that's what she was going for, I could have given her that instead. So that was such a profound moment for me to see someone literally go from 3 centimeters stuck for a day to a baby out in an hour of like, wow, this plant connects with the uterus and connects with our bodies and helps at such a profound level. And, I should just stop there and segue into Shiela speaking on her experiences, but there's a couple other things I want to say really quick. Eileen touched on blood sugar levels, and I can share from my experience, I run very low blood sugar. I used to be hangry lady, hangry mom all the time. I can tell you that when I was breastfeeding, and my son was 2.5, like up until right when I started these extracts, 2 weeks went by after I started using these, and I looked in the console of my truck because I always had a bag of Trader Joe's unsalted roasted nuts in there, that whenever I was driving to pick the kids up, I was snacking on them constantly because I was always dipping into low blood sugar zones. And I started using this, and 2 weeks went by, and I thought, I haven't touched that bag. That bag is still almost full. Like, this so stabilized my blood sugar levels. That's incredible. And again, we make no claims this is going to heal, treat, cure, prevent any illness or disease. I want to say that for sure, but it brings the body into balance and things can start to shift on their own. So that was so huge for me because pregnancy, highlights our weaknesses in our health. It just does. Whatever our weak organ systems are, whatever our things are that maybe didn't show up beforehand, when we are pregnant, it's going to get exposed. And the hemp is going to help everybody to navigate that and to strengthen the systems, which I really love. And the other thing I wanted to say really fast, this isn't fast, is that babies feel what mom feels. We know that clinically, we see it, you know, and Shiela could talk about this too. I'm going to be quiet in a minute, I promise. But the babies feel whatever is going on for us. When we have that cortisol response, when we have that adrenaline response, the baby is getting flooded with whatever we're experiencing. And we wish that we could be blissed out pregnant moms all the time and blissed out breastfeeding moms all the time, but that is just not real. And so what tools do we have? Maybe we have an active meditation practice. Maybe we can get out for walks. That's often not enough for a pregnant mom with stressors or a new mom with stressors, because that's just life. And so to have this as a tool to be able to take care of ourselves, have it in our self-care toolkit and take care of ourselves at a high level where we're going to be our best selves, so that what our baby is getting from us, whether in the womb or through breast milk, is going to be of the highest good, and promote their well-being instead of their stress. So
that's super important about baby feeling that too. Thank you for bringing that up. That's that's a big part of this. So yeah, wonderful. Shiela.
Yeah, I agree, really. And Eileen, thank you for bringing up the importance of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic and the balance there, because that is so true. The thing is that in pregnancy, the sympathetic is really often overactivated. And that's a cultural, societal thing as much as anything in the individual stress responses, right, that exist for everybody. And whatever we're bringing in to our pregnancy and our birth. And so that is definitely something I am very interested in work with. And the SOAS, this book is right here, the SOAS book. And that's something I'm really passionate about as well. And, the baby follows the SOAS, right? It's the messenger of the midline. So when the baby's being born, that is so. It's very important. And my experience, as midwife, I nurture that in a multitude of ways, but specifically with what we're talking about in the hemp oil, I find in birth, and I'll give a couple examples, but we try to nurture everything leading up to the birth. That is really the most important thing, right? So that by the time we get to that, the big event, that we've done a lot of the work ahead of time. And so the bliss state, all the things that are available in that, in a natural birth state, are optimized already. With that said, of course, we meet all sorts of things in birth that maybe could be anticipated or not. Recently, I had a story where, an experience where the mom had, a premature urge to push, which is just basically where it's a little variable for everybody, but she was around 7 or 8 centimeters, so not totally crazy, like versus it being at like 3 centimeters, but it's still a very difficult thing to not do when the baby's really low, right? And so because of that, her sympathetic system was definitely getting amped up. And so I was like, okay, we're going to get in the tub. And I just gave her a couple dropperfuls of the hemp oil. And it was so beautiful. Within the hour, she had, found her center again. But also she was like, will you check me now? Because she really felt that things were different. And sure enough, that last bit of cervix had gone away, and she was able to, finish what she had really wanted to do the hour before, And so, that's again, back to the motherboard, where I feel like there is this connectivity that happens within all the systems we've been talking about, that the hemp oil can very much help to just bring forth and nurture, and allow for that calmness and that centeredness to to carry through the delivery and into the postpartum. And because, yeah, that's the baby's experience as well, as you've all said. So are there any other specific examples you'd want to have, just because there's so many stories? But was there another one you had, Darren, on your mind, or that was enough?
There was that. There was other ones that you'd used it in labor and seen shifts. I don't know if you've used it in maybe one example of how you used it in pregnancy, that you've seen something, if there is one that you can think of easily, or another birth one.
Well, for sleep, I think a lot about it for sleep, because that is so variable for everybody. And as you know, a lot of pregnant people, the sleep is quite variable. But actually, there was one postpartum. Well, we're not talking postpartum. Never mind. I won't go there. But
exactly the next one.
I know. For sleep in general, again, it just really nurtures that place of, even if you're not sleeping like you normally sleep, right? Like 8 hours of sleep for a pregnant person is kind of rare in a row. But it's the quality, right? It's the quality of how it nurtures the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, but in this instance, more the parasympathetic, to be able to handle the circadian rhythm changes and all of that. So, yeah, so a lot of clients use it for that reason too, which is way better than Ambien, or, just in terms of the other effects that can happen with it. So,
yeah. And SOAS is like the major of my practice, pregnant or not. So I love that whole idea of it following. That's the guideline, to follow that down. That's amazing. No surprise, because our body is just designed so beautifully, and especially for creation like this. And I mean, if that doesn't tell you that, how important it is to have that open and to try to help, a whole nother thing that we could talk about would be, the C-sections. And not a place to get in debate about C-sections, but for those that, women who did not want that, and we're trying to avoid that, they sometimes don't have the tools or the understanding of how they can work with their body, and how that particularly, how it's designed to do just that, to allow the baby to come down. And like I was saying, for the turning, a lot of doctors are not, if a baby's breech, most doctors these days have no idea how to deliver a breeched baby. And these are things that, with a relaxed system and being out of that fight or flight, these are things that could naturally help take care of themselves. So, yeah, wow. Such wonderful information, such beautiful information. I've been trying to see if there were any questions. It's a little hard to check Facebook, but I don't think so. But if anybody does have any questions, like I've always said, just please feel free to write any of us or whoever invited you on this call. And yes, it will be recorded, because a couple of people have asked that. So, and I look forward to next time, hopefully talking about some postpartum. So after baby. But does anybody have any last words of wisdom or any thoughts that they want to add in? Perfect. All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining and just sharing your wisdom and your experiences. And I learn so much every time. It's such a beautiful thing. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Erica.